Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. My tonsils were removed when I was 4.5 years old. Something went wrong during the procedure and I started bleeding. During the surgery, all I remember seeing was a brilliant, warm white light. I awoke from the anesthesia in the presence of my parents. I could see concern in their eyes. "We almost lost you," my father said. I recall not understanding what he was saying. I needed 3 blood transfusions and was hospitalized for 2 weeks. Once I returned home, my mom forced me to sit outside daily to regain my strength. I'd sit in the backyard and play with Snowball, the neighbor's kitten. She had fluffy white fur and blue and green eyes. I went out to play with Snowball about a month after my surgery. I discovered her lying on her back in the tall grass. A yellow jacket flew in and out of her open mouth, making her stiff and cold. I dashed back into the house to find Mom. Mom brought me back into the house after one look at Snowball. My mother then attempted to explain to me the concept of death. She instructed me to think of flowers that sprout from seeds in the spring and grow to be strong and beautiful in the summer, and how they wilt and dry up in the autumn before disappearing in the winter. She stated that this occurs in all living things, and that if all living things did not die, there would be no room for new flowers, kittens, or even people. I said yes when she asked if I understood, but I could tell she was uncomfortable with the subject, so I didn't ask her any questions. But I had a hefty one. I knew my body would eventually wear out and stop working, but what about my mind, my thoughts? You know, the essence of who I am. Mom never mentioned the concept of a soul, but my 4-year-old mind knew I was more than just a body. I spent the rest of the day wrestling with the idea that one day I would simply cease to exist. It seemed impossible to me that all of me could be extinguished like a candle flame in an instant. That night in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about dying. I was upset and rubbed my eyes, pressing my eyelids tightly together. I felt myself shoot out of the top of my head all of a sudden. I found myself adrift in pitch blackness. My body lacked definition, if you can call it that. I felt as if I were made of clouds. I was not afraid, even though I was in complete darkness. After a while, I became aware of something to my left, below me. When I looked down, I noticed a large blue ball turning slowly. I noticed rays of sunlight reflecting off blue water and brown soil. Large white clouds hung over the entire scene. I realized I was looking at the earth. It was lovely and peaceful, but I had no desire to return there. In fact, I felt rather detached from the entire image. I enjoyed looking at the earth, but I had no emotional attachment to it. Time seemed to slow down, but after a while, I became aware of something to my right, above me. When I looked up, I saw a beautiful golden staircase backlit by the most spectacular, warm, golden white light imaginable. Words cannot describe how breathtakingly fantastic it was. I could see intricate carvings in the gold even though I wasn't close to the stairs. I wanted to get closer to the staircase, and as soon as I thought of it, I began to float over to it. When I looked at the stairs, I had the distinct impression that they were moving, but they weren't. I was moving faster as I got closer to the stairwell. My fingers began to tingle with excitement as I reached out with my arms to touch the stairs. "You're not supposed to remember this," yelled a booming male voice as I approached the bottom stairwell. The next thing I knew, I was back in my bedroom. I burst into tears because all I wanted to do was return to that lovely staircase. I knew if I made it to the top, I'd be home. My dad came in to see what was wrong, and I guess I was crying quite loudly. I knew the whole thing should be kept private, so I told Dad I was upset about Snowball. He kissed me and assured me that Snowball was in a better place. For many years, I kept this entire experience a secret. When the Apollo astronauts returned photos of Earth from the moon in 1969, I realized what I had experienced was real because I'd seen these images 10 years before. My parents were never informed, and my siblings were informed after my parents died. All the while, I had the impression that I had recovered a memory of being in between lives. I never considered myself to have had an NDE until I read an article in one of my nursing magazines 2 years ago. It detailed the physical and psychological consequences of an NDE. As I read, I almost fell out of my chair. I experienced nearly all of the side effects listed. I've struggled for years with being sensitive to loud noises, violence, and bright light. Even the smallest amount of dim light at night bothers me. My normal body temperature is usually 97 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Some medications cause me to have violent reactions, and I've had 2 episodes of anaphylaxis with no clear cause. My allergist described me as an enigma. I can't wear a watch for too long because it'll speed up, slow down, or stop working entirely. I currently have a dead battery in my watch, but as soon as I put it on, it begins to run and will continue to run until I remove it. I can't be near electrical devices for too long because they'll fail. When I walk into the room, computers will occasionally go offline. This is my 3rd attempt to type everything and send it to you. I can't type because the keyboard has frozen. I've always had some form of ESP. I just know when things will happen, and I can sometimes read people's minds. I can get almost any plant to grow. Animals adore me. Chubby, one of my friend's cats, is terrified of people. When guests arrive, she flees and hides. Chubby, on the other hand, runs right over to me, wanting to be held. Chubby was outside the kitchen window, frantically clawing to get in one day as I sat at my friend's kitchen table drinking tea. She jumped into my lap as soon as she was let in. Even bees and wasps pay attention to me. If they get into the house, I just open the door, call them, and they fly right out. I'm now known as the bug lady at work because I can make any bug go outside. I've had a lot of prophetic dreams. When I was 11, I had a dream that my father would die 2 days before he did. When I told my sister about the dream, she was skeptical. She certainly changed her feelings when my mother received the news that her father had died. After that, I was in constant contact with Dad for about 6 months. His presence was felt on my right shoulder. All I had to do was think of him, and he was there. In my head, I could hear his voice, and he would answer any questions I had. When my mother discovered what I was capable of, she began pleading with me to ask Daddy for various things. After a while, I got scared and asked my mother not to make me ask Dad any more questions. I've always felt compelled to nurture. That is why I decided to become a nurse. My patients say I have a very soothing presence. I am now a Reiki master. Although I do not yet have a practice, I do provide Reiki on a regular basis. Many people have complimented me on my healing hands. I once gave Reiki to an autistic girl who'd lost her ability to communicate. I promised to do my best to make her feel better. I had my hands on her head for a few minutes when she grabbed them and yanked them off. I thought I'd probably bothered her, but she put my hands on her face and proceeded to kiss them. I've often felt as if I'm not from this world. It's difficult to put into words, but I feel out of place. Even though I enjoy life and I'm grateful for each day, a part of me wishes to be back home. I frequently wonder what would have happened if I'd been able to retrieve more of that memory. It was so frustrating to be so close to ascending the stairs, only to be yelled at and returned to my body. I've tried several times to return to that memory, but I can't get past that booming voice. Oh well, maybe someday.